Greetings to the ladies at First Baptist Church and anybody else that might care to join us today. I was thinking about our title, our theme for the ladies' retreat, which is for such a time as this. And of course, that references the story of Esther and talks about how she was placed in that time to do what God had called her to do, and that nobody else could have done. Nobody else was as beautiful as Esther. So I'm going to start with a story that I love and that I've told quite a few of you. Hopefully somebody hasn't heard it. I was out walking one day, and I was walking down one of the streets in Prineville, and there was a little boy on the other side of the street that I noticed. He was out playing, and as I got close to him, he called to me, and he said, "What day is it?" And I was just surprised by the question, and I said, "It's Tuesday." And he said, "Oh, it's Tuesday." And all his little friends were there, and he called to his friends and he said, "Guys, it's Tuesday." And I just laughed. I chuckled almost the whole way home. It was just such a wonderful reminder that that Tuesday and today Friday is a day to celebrate, and even in the midst of what you might be struggling with at the moment. I have some verses I want to start our time together with, and the first set is Psalm 68, 4 through 6, and the second set is Acts 17, 24 through 27, in case you want to look those up. Psalm 68, 4 through 6. Sing to God, sing praises to his name. Lift up a song to him who rides through the deserts. His name is the Lord. Exult before him. Father of the fatherless and protector of widows is God in his holy habitation. God settles the solitary in a home. He leads out the prisoners to prosperity, but the rebellious dwell in a parched land. This verse really hits me right to my heart, and I think whenever I feel like I'm living in a parched land, I have to check my heart and see if I'm also living in rebellion, because that's what it says. Acts 17, 24 through 27. The God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in temples made by man, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all mankind life and breath and everything. And he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted times and the boundaries of their dwelling place, that they should seek God in the hope that they might feel their way toward him and find him. Yet he is actually not far from each of us. And that one, the part of that verse that really opened my eyes was that God has determined allotted periods and boundaries of our dwelling place. And a lot of times we feel like we're just kind of making random decisions and landing in random places. But according to God's word, he determines the allotted periods and the boundaries of our dwelling place, which I think is really, really cool. When I think about these verses and the 2 points that I've mentioned so far, I think of that kind of a trite little saying that we say, which is bloom where you're planted. And but it's true. We need to bloom where we're planted. And along that line, last week Tom and I went to Vernonia, Oregon, to a memorial service for a friend. And many years ago, in fact, it was 1992, I think, that we really entered into a relationship with Grant and his wife, Aldana. Grant invited Tom to go raft the Colorado River with him, and that may not sound like a huge deal, but it was an 11-year waiting period when you put your name in to raft the Colorado till you actually got to do it. And for Tom to be able to do that just kind of last minute was very, very special and really cool. The the interesting thing about that, in my mind, when I think back on it, is that that rafting trip really changed the whole trajectory of our lives. And that was what eventually, when Tom went into adventure camping ministry, that was part of the reason that he got into that, which was so. Anyway, this relationship was a pretty good relationship. We were very close. Grant was an intern at our church with our pastor, and he had just graduated from Western Baptist with a MDiv degree, and he did this period of internship at our church, and we became good friends. And then when the time was over of his internship, he got a church of his own, and that was in Vernonia, Oregon. And I don't know how many of you have heard of Vernonia. I bet very few of you have ever been there. It's kind of like Prineville in the sense that it's on the road to nowhere, and it's like halfway between Portland and the coast, but it's off the beaten track by like 15-20 miles. And it's very, very small. I mean, we consider our town small, but Vernonia, I just looked it up, has a population now of 1,800 people. And I think it was even less then. So when you think of someone climbing the ladder of importance and influence, you don't necessarily think of going to Vernonia. And this was a very small church, and that was when we went to the memorial service. I think half the town was there. I really do. And the stories that I heard and the stories that I listened to were wonderful. They were stories of influence, stories of being cared for, being loved, being generous, being just taken care of. And I really think that every one of those 1,800 people in Vernonia not only knew Grant, but appreciated him and saw the love of Christ from him. One of the stories, this was a funny one to us. Grant was a very affectionate person, and when he would see you, he would give you a hug and he would kiss you on the cheek, and that was just kind of more than some people could take. Tom used to work at a body shop, and the men that he worked with were very, how shall we say, they were not believers, and they were very proud of that, and so they would often try to anger Tom or just say things that would offend him. And of course, those of you that know him know he doesn't offend very easily, so it was a kind of an ongoing game. But when Grant would come to see Tom, he would stop in at the shop and he would go up to him and give him a hug and kiss him on the cheek. And he would be teased for days about that. So anyway, that was just a story. And then one of the guys that got up and shared at the service, he said, "I know that Grant loved me. I know that he did because he kissed me." And everybody laughed because they all knew Grant and they all loved him and they knew that he cared for them. So that was just one of the little stories about Grant. And but when we sat there and listened to the stories, and I thought, so here is a life well lived. Here is a life that went where God told him to go and stayed there, even through, there was major problems with the church, with Vernonia floods every couple years, and lots of loss and lots of pain, and he went there to that small town. He stayed there because God told him to, and he made a difference, and he blessed people, and he loved people, and he cared, and he led them to Jesus. And so that was just a wonderful example to me of a life well lived, but of someone who who didn't go into a small town like that and consider it to be a barren place, but considered it to be a place where he could minister and where he could bless people. So the next thing I wanted to share with you was a statement. I'm reading this book, and it's called Playing God, Redeeming the Gift of Power. And it's one of those books that I've been reading for about 2 years, and I'm sure I will be reading for another 2 years, because I tend to read a couple chapters and then think about that for quite a while and then have to go back and read it again so that I can get into the next chapter. So I'll be there for a while. But one of the things that one of the quotes that I wrote down because I loved it was, "We have a kind of blindness, an absurdly low estimation of the power we have and how many opportunities we have to use it well." And what I wrote about that was, while I believe this is true, it strikes home, particularly right now, because I feel so helpless to fix or even help any of the issues that concern me. So when we feel powerless, when we feel that we are in a barren place, what can we do? What do we have the power to do? And the first one that we read in Psalms was, we can sing to God. We can sing praises to his name. We can lift up a song to him who rides through the deserts. That's where we live. He rides through the deserts. His name is the Lord. Exalt before him. That is a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice of obedience, because we are told, that's what we're told to do. And so it is a sacrifice that we give, even when it doesn't feel like we are rejoicing. The second thing that we can do at all times is we can pray. And if you remember when Mike preached about lamenting, that really struck home too, because a lot of times we think that we can pray, but we have to be positive. We have to be trying to make the best of the situation we're in, which is a good thing. But sometimes all we can do is lament. Like, I can lament the death of my friend, but I can also use that lament to kind of clear the pipes so that I can be reminded of the goodness of God and how he answers our prayers. I can write. I can journal. I know that's not a very good word to some people. Are you listening, Kathy? But and I am not a person that journals regularly. I don't want to pretend that. But when I look back at the times when I did, like when my heart was burdened or when I was celebrating, and I wrote it down and I read it again, it just blesses my heart, because I can see what has changed and how God has answered those cries of my heart and how he has taken care of the things I've asked for him. We can call people, we can contact them, we can reach out to them. We have so many options now that we didn't have. We can Marco Polo, we can do all kinds of FaceTime. All those things, we need to contact each other and keep involved in each other's lives. For me, I had to list cook because that's my love language. I love to cook for people, and just let me know if you need a meal. And it just, you can do treats for people. You can serve them in that way. We can love. And honestly, part of loving is just being there, listening, and not just listening to the point of when are they going to stop talking because I have something I want to say, but truly listening, truly walking, bearing another person's burdens and walking through that with them. And the last thing that I'd like to say is that we can fight. Don't just give in. Don't just retreat, but fight for the relationships and fight to maintain the contact. Fight to be a part of the body of Christ. Fight to work, to serve, and to love. I would like to end with a couple more verses. And we're just in my Bible reading this morning. And this is 1 Corinthians 16, and it's verse 13 and 14. 1 Corinthians 16, 13 and 14. Be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong, let all that you do be done in love. That's what I have to share today. And I hope that for such a time as this, there might just be one word of encouragement that would take root in your heart. I love you. See you soon.